Titration, yo, keep the game to the...
Don't let the rap music fool you. This isn't some concert or pyramid scheme. This is actually a business meeting that led to the addiction and death of over 7,000 people. And while Chris Evans may be putting up an act for the movie, the underlying story is all too real. In this video, we'll be going over the horrible story of Insys Therapeutics and how they got Americans hooked on prescription drugs. Stick around till the very end to see just how much damage they've done, and if we could ever recover from it. In the beginning, Insys Therapeutics was a company that was founded in 1990 by JohnKapoor. Keep Kapoor in mind as the video goes on. Their company focused primarily on developing medicine that could address unmet medical needs, and one of those problems was breakthrough cancer pain. This was the type of pain that patients in the later stages of cancer had to endure. Sudden large spikes of unimaginable pain that hurt so much that common painkillers like morphine wouldn't even help anymore. That's when you reach for a stronger painkiller like fentanyl. But the drug is as strong as it is dangerous, considering the risks that come with it. Taking excessive amounts of fentanyl could lead to addiction or worse, death by overdose. Although the drug is usually in pill form, Insys would introduce its FDA-approved formulation of fentanyl called Subsys, which is sold in highly convenient little spray bottles. The product was meant to be sold for cancer patients aged 18 years old and above, a strict guideline enforced by the FDA because of how strong the drug was. As innovative as Subsys was, the product wasn't the breakthrough that Kapoor had anticipated. Low sales and little fanfare in the medical world left Insys fiddling with their thumbs before any action was done. And finally, after just 3 months of low sales, Kapoor had enough. He would then enact a plan so selfish and evil that it would land him on Forbes' 300 billionaires list. Action. Pharmaceutical companies like Insys get rich by convincing doctors to prescribe their medicine to patients, an act that was difficult for Subsys specifically considering how dangerous of a drug they were dealing with. They'd already tried convincing doctors the clean way, now it was time to get their hands dirty. Insys began holding a speaker program for Subsys, a common practice for big pharma companies that want to introduce their medicine to doctors and showcase the scientific side of their medicine. But Subsys' speaker programs have a different agenda in mind. They wanted to sell by any means possible, and that meant flashy deals. Soon, the Insys sales team would compose less trained doctors with medical knowledge and more generic salespeople that knew nothing about the medicine they were selling. Heck, they even hired former Playboy bunnies to sell their medicine. Insys had one thing, and only one thing in mind for their speaker programs: generate sales. Instead of telling doctors how Subsys could be beneficial for their patients, they began convincing doctors how Subsys was going to be good for them. Offerings of a commission-based program began where doctors, depending on how much Subsys they were able to prescribe, got access to certain rewards. Every doctor involved got paid their fair share of commission, while the top sellers had access to private dinner reservations at wealthy restaurants, houses, and even an all-expenses-paid trip to strip clubs. There was even a rap video showing the different salesmen of Insys rapping and talking about how boosting sales would lead to a rich, lavish lifestyle. And of course, doctors couldn't be happier. Each doctor in the program reportedly received at least $55,000 each from all the sales, totaling up to more than $2 million spent by Insys on commissions alone. Now yes, this practice is illegal, but Kapoor already thought of that. Each commission was labeled as a talent fee for doctors speaking at the speaker program, turning an illegal transaction into a legal one in the eyes of the law. Kapoor's little plan made the company's net revenue skyrocket, but he wasn't done there. Insurance fraud. While Subsys was a controlled product because of how dangerous and addictive it is, getting a prescription didn't guarantee you the product, and it didn't come cheap. For that, Kapoor had another brilliant idea: health insurance. If you're in dire need of your pain medication, your company could leverage its health insurance policies and call in claims for your medicine, ensuring that your medicine is paid for and free for patients to consume. While others may see this as a godsend, Kapoor saw this as a way to guarantee sales even from the less fortunate. Greed is one hell of a drug, but there was just one problem. Subsys was a breakthrough cancer pain medication, which meant that in order to file for insurance, you had to actually have cancer.
I have cancer.
So Kapoor started hiring staff whose sole purpose was to pose as office staff to call insurance companies, endorsing specific patients for their pain medication. While most insurance companies do ask if the patients have cancer, none of the checking goes beyond questions, and a simple yes from the office staff was more than enough to get insurance claims.
Yes. Lung cancer. Inoperable.
In fact, as a little legal loophole, Insys office staff would often avoid mentioning the word cancer, only stating that the patient in question was just in pain. This little addition to Kapoor's workforce made the drug all the easier to obtain, but he didn't stop there. Kapoor would push the envelope of his greedy mission to the eventual breaking point of his company and of America. Titration massacre. No, titration isn't just some crazy ad-lib that Chris Evans thought of for his pharmaceutical rap, though he was spitting bars. Titration is actually a medical term used by doctors to define the act of prescribing higher and higher dosages to patients to see if a drug would take effect. This is, again, another common practice in medicine that's been bastardized by Kapoor into a greedy money-making mechanic. Some of the doctors on Insys' payroll had a tough time selling their product to other patients, some of them wrestling with the legal justifications of prescribing the drug to patients without pain. To remedy this, Kapoor and his sales team wanted to drill the concept of titration into their brains. This meant that instead of having to look for new customers, they could just continually milk their current patients for everything they had, prescribing higher and higher dosages for the patient. As we've said before, fentanyl is a lethal drug in higher dosages. This meant that doctors all over America were basically giving out death sentences to the same people that came to them for help. One such account came from an Army veteran that was hurting from an injury sustained from the war. Doctors reportedly had this veteran on a fentanyl dosage equivalent to 5,000 Percocets a day or a gram of heroin per day. But in this case, death may be the easier option. Some doctors gave their patients just enough fentanyl dosage to get them addicted to the drug, forcing them to come back for regular doses and changing their life for the worse. Although Insys only reported 900 deaths to the FDA estimates a 7,000 death count due to Insys' reckless actions. And that doesn't count the broken lives of people that got addicted to fentanyl. But all this treachery wasn't going under the radar for long. The dust settles. Soon enough, a whistleblower from the company emerged and revealed all the things that Insys has done to sate Kapoor's greed. It started with just one, then more victims and participants testified to the crimes. The head of sales at Insys openly testified against Kapoor and all the doctors involved in exchange for a shorter sentence. His testimony revealed everything that the company had been up to. They claimed that they never really stopped and looked at the damage they've done to their customers and instead focused on the money.
$500,000 in cash.
Every Insys executive faced considerable jail time after the trial, while Kapoor himself served the longest sentence. Kapoor faced 66 months in jail for insurance fraud and the bribery of officials, a lighter slap on the wrist compared to the time he would have served if it weren't for the head of sales testimony.
You got me.
Insys is a prime example of what big companies, especially big pharma companies, are capable of when blinded by greed. America is now facing an opioid crisis with addicts dosing all over the streets. Countless lives have been ruined by this drug, and Insys undoubtedly played a huge role in that. So think twice about the next prescription you get, because it may very well be your last.